Hey, how's it going, everyone? GC Performance here, back with another video. Today we have the brand new release of the Shimano Dura-Ace DI2 9200. Looks beautiful, by the way. It actually looks exactly the same, just with a little bit of differences to it. Today we're going to be going over when it can be expected that you're going to see in stores. We're going to talk about what the prices of the group set, because I got prices on it as well, with power meter and without power meter. Prices on Ultegra as well, and maybe some things that you might have missed from all the other YouTubers that posted videos today on it. I know James Arthur did a great job on it, phenomenal. And GCN somehow got a bike with it in their store and got paid. It said ad on the video, so got paid to get a. It's mind blowing to me how YouTube works. It's crazy to me. GCN got a bike to them with the hottest group set available and got paid to do an ad on the bike when it doesn't need an ad. It's going to sell regardless, but I can't even get these group sets in store to sell to consumers. The group set's going to sell itself. But anyways, that's besides the point. GCN, good job to you guys. What we're going to do is we're going to go over the situation on when you can expect it, how much it is, and maybe a couple things you guys didn't see as well. And just so you know, I do work at a store / own a store as well. My father owns a store. There are some embargo things I can't say. When you know, obviously, there's some group sets coming out, so I don't want to risk my store's reputation with my rep or risk anything in general of, you know, leaking information on a new group set or new frame or new bike coming out to the public just for YouTube's sake or YouTube clout. You know, we know about the Dura stuff. We hear about it. We hear this and that. I just have to kind of play coy to it. I didn't want to show off anything like that because we have a reputation line in the store. The store is my main priority. The YouTube career is second. So that is my job, to just kind of inform you guys, and hopefully you guys can take the information and go what you want with it. But starting off with it, it looks great. I mean, there are some subtle differences. You can see the crank. It looks a little bit more bulkier. I heard that they redesigned this crank arm right here as well to kind of make it to, I don't know if you ever saw the crank failures for the Dura-Ace and the Ultegra. Purposely, I think they made this a little bit bulkier here to reinforce that so it doesn't fail and this doesn't delaminate and cause any more failures to it. Also, they changed the brake calipers, which we'll talk about in the future, which they actually made it a little bit wider and made it less likely to rub and better heat dissipation. And they got rid of the old Dura-Ace rotors and are using XTR rotors now for the sake of that. We'll get more into that. They changed the shift levers, ergonomics, the hood shape, everything like that, where the brakes actuate at. They made the Dura-Ace cage longer and more up to date, more modern. Everyone wants to run wider tires, bigger gearing. So we'll take a deeper dive into all this stuff. But first, before I bore you guys with all the fun stuff, I'm going to talk about availability on when you guys could probably get this on your bike or get your hands on a set. So me being a store, we put orders in for this, I want to say about a month ago, for Ultegra DI2 group sets and Dura-Ace DI2 group sets and Ultegra DI2 group sets, full groupos, power meters and all. Before the launch date, we were told by our rep or whoever it was, our Shimano people, that it was going to be around the end of September, maybe early October. Now, after this whole time release, for just groupos in general to getting to the public, you're most likely, what they told us, is going to be at the end of the year. Now, needless to say, this probably depends on region and where you're living. This is South Florida, where I'm speaking about specifically, and there's much more stores here than maybe like in other realms of the world. There's a bike shop on every corner, every 5 miles, so there's a lot more to take in, and they have to allocate these appropriately. But and this doesn't mean as well. I've also seen bikes that we sell, and other brands I know that sell, that will have Dura-Ace DI2 and Ultegra DI2, the new stuff on there, spec'd, and they'll be shipping soon. You'll just have to get your hands on it. But in case of you, or in terms of you actually getting yourself a full Grupo on there, for yourself in hands, from what I told from my shop, which we do pretty high numbers and pretty high quantity of ordering, that it's going to be a while until the end of the month, the end of the year. That's what I was told. So I got Ultegra DI2 and Dura-Ace DI2, and that's for the full Grupo, no wheels. But that's what I was told. And price range. Now, I did the numbers myself, and I have all the prices here. Just to give you guys reference, the new re-derailleur is about $850. I'll put that in perspective. The new cassette is about $360. But the whole group set, chain, cassette, rear derailleur, front derailleur, crank with a power meter, shifters, brake calipers, rotors, and then I just counted that I'm assuming that the battery and the wires are the same, and the chain as well as a 12-speed chain. I got it around $4,900 for the full Grupo. That's with a power meter. Now I'll say that again. Granted, SRAM Red ETAP I think is like $4,400 for the whole set with a power meter. But $4,900, it's a lot of money. Ultegra pricing, I don't have the exact pricing because I didn't see on Shimano's dealer website the price for a cassette for Ultegra yet, and I don't know what they're planning on doing with that yet. And this is for hydraulic disc brake. I think rim brake is about the same as well. The price might actually be a little bit cheaper because of the fact that you don't have rotors, but it's in that realm still. 45 for probably rim brake, but you're looking around 4,900 bucks, and I think that's without me including a battery charger. So keep that in mind. It's going to be expensive if you want this group set. So hopefully you guys save your money. Anyways, let's look into some pics I got of this stuff. Let's talk about rear derailleur first. You can see they changed the rear derailleur. They made the cage longer. They now made the access point for where you charge it as well different. So I'm going to show you guys. There's a chain. And the reason why they made this cage longer is because they're making a more accommodation for bigger gearing. I think the new biggest chainring now, there's no more 5339 for the crank. The standard crank now is a 5441. And the biggest cassette you can run in the back is actually an 1134. So they make this derailleur capable of running a 54 and 34 together, which is pretty cool, which I think is pretty badass. Also, show you the back of it. Now we have our button right here for the micro tear. That's going to be where you trim that's going to be where you press and hold the button to trim the gearing for when you go back and forth. The charge port is on the back, and the charge port is the exact same charge port as what it used to be for the crank for the power meter. I don't know if you guys ever seen that before, but it's basically like a little clip-on, like a little C-clip, that kind of like has magnets and goes on there. So there's only one cable. There is no more junction box. You have to plug into your handlebar or your down tube or whatever. Your charge port is on the back of this rear derailleur now, so that's all you have to worry about. And then there is an LED light on the top of this derailleur, which will indicate where it goes. Right here, charging port, function button, LED indicator, so that way you know if you're in tearing mode. You have your limit screws right here. Boom, boom. Which, if you buy a bike and you buy it from a shop and they adjust it, please don't go home. Please don't go home and touch those limit screws and then bring it back to the shop. I don't know. I didn't touch it. Your B limiter as well to adjust the chain gap. But yes, this is the same charge as what the power meter used to be for the crank as well. So if you buy a power meter Dura crank, this will be the charger for the crank, and this will be the charger for the rear derailleur. Yeah. So that is the rear derailleur, $840. It looks good. It looks just like, to be honest with you, the older derailleur, except not as sharp and just a longer cage. So pretty cool. And then also with that, there's less tension. So maybe they're going after the OSPW market. But yes, very cool stuff. The gearing for the rear derailleur now is 1128, 1130, and a new 1134. Before they did not make an 1134 cassette for the Dura. So it used to only be Ultegra. So now you can get an 1134 Dura cassette, which is pretty cool. And there is no more 1125, I guess, for the 12-speed stuff. So, and yes, keep this in mind, this is 12-speed only, and they give you a more sweet spot gearing. Going to the front derailleur, which has some big changes, which everyone's kind of talking about. We will bring up right here. It's much smaller. The guys on GCN really like the way that it's much smaller, and they noticed that they said it's aerodynamic. But you have this big branding of the Dura logo right here. There's not a big memory box up top here, and this is what the configuration looks like. The blue is the new, the pink is a current, so you can see it is much smaller. Just aesthetically looks better. Nothing crazy to it. I think it looks nice with that Dura branding. I do like that. Kind of, it does look, you buy Dura, you want it to say Dura. Sometimes people don't even realize that you had an Ultegra front derailleur on a Dura bike. This is the cassette wise I was talking about. Dura's cassette 12-speed. They did not go after the 10-speed cog like on the SRAM. They kept this 11-speed cog because of the fact that they said that they figured they can run it better smoothly like that. And they kept the same gear in front. But again, like I said, you can get 11 tooth down here, and now a 28 in the bottom, a 30 or a 34. That's the most minimum right now I think they're running. But we did see SRAM down the road make changes to the gear ratios. Maybe Dura, once they get enough people out there and customer feedback on what they want, maybe they'll give them that option. Going to the crank, like I said before, it looks a little bit aesthetically different. Pretty similar to what it was before, but they changed the access point of where this pod was for the charging port. That's your little junction, your function button right here. And then the crank arm as well, the non-drive side. That's where you plug in for your battery. That's your other port right there. And then you have a magnet on your frame as well. But apparently with this new power meter, it is more accurate. I think it lasts up to 3. I forget the exact charging time. I'm not gonna say because I don't know for sure. I'm sure you can figure out. But they give it a variety of crank lengths. I think from 160 all the way to 177.5, which is really nice. But still, no carbon cranks from Dura-Ace, which I would like to see in the future. One time in my life, I'd like to see them make a carbon crank, and I believe still a 24mm spindle. Who would have thunk? Everyone wanted BB30 because of the bigger spindle axle, and now they went to dub. Shimano stayed true and tried and kept it non-carbon and 24mm. So, yeah, good job, you guys, Dura-Ace. For the crank configuration for the chainring, you can get it in the standard 50-34, so 52 at the top, 34 for the small. That's called a compact. That's still standard. You have the mid compact with the 52-36, which you're going to see majority on these bikes coming from stock if you buy anything top of the line from a distributor like Specialized, Trek, Scott. They're usually going to come with 52-36 for the reason of that's just the standard it goes with. And then they came out with a 54-41, so there's no more 53-39. 53-39 used to be called the standard. Now it's a 54-41 to accommodate the bigger gearing in the back for the 12-speed. So because you have that bigger cog in the back on the cassette, and you have that wider gear range, they figure they can put a bigger tooth on the front and allow that to happen. So very cool stuff there. Brake calipers. I'm excited to talk. What the fuck is that? Okay. Brake calipers, I'm very excited to talk about. As a mechanic, you guys probably won't care as much about me. They changed the way you bleed this. Here is your bleeding port now. Before you have to take before you have to take a syringe with a rubber like hose, and you have to put it on this nipple, and then a 7mm Allen key, or I'm sorry, 7mm crescent wrench, and loosen it up and like kind of like bleed it and push it in through there. There's a loose connection. You sometimes get drippage and stuff like that. It just got messy. Finally, they have a port you can actually plug something into. It's not as bad. Also, with this caliper, they made it 10% wider, they said, so there's not going to be as much sand, grit, and dirt that will go into here to allow it to not have this drag when going downhill. And they said that their pistons will actually not get, well, what I heard was the calipers are not going to get as heated as quickly. They did some heat dissipation tests, and it's going to allow it to be more functional. So because disc brakes are the future, even Shimano said that, they said that brake calipers, rim brakes are as good as they're going to get, that you're only going to have that option with rim brakes, and they haven't really came up with a better solution, like David was saying about having like a rubber compound for a brake or something that's like proprietary that can probably be really strong, but it's going to wear out faster. Disc brakes are the future. They're going to be the future, and they work with bikes in terms of aero degree and stuff like that. So, but yes, I like it because of the fact that you're going to have less rub, less noise, less chances of you having disc brake rub because you make that wider. And that's a big correction. I mean, that's huge. To be able to say, hey, this is one of the biggest problems about disc brakes, why people aren't buying it, and to go ahead and opening up the pad contact, that's huge for us. I mean, no one likes to buy a $12,000 bike and have disc brake rub. So I like that. I like how they changed the ports. They did a great job there. Also, with the group set, I am dyslexic as all hell, and I forgot to mention, it is a semi-electronic group set. So what that means is the shifters use a cell battery, like a 2032, like a circular battery similar as SRAM, that are wireless. So the shifters are wireless. Then the front derailleur and rear derailleur have a wire ran into a battery into the seat post. So it has the battery, which will give you a more supported and more longer charge. And then you have the wireless shifters, which will allow for easier routing for these new aero bikes. Everything's integrated. You don't have to worry about running these cables from one shifter to another and then another cable. Not saying that it wasn't done or possible because we made it work, but it's going to be easier for mechanics to do. It's going to be easier for these companies to make bikes in the future because they have to worry about less wires to run, so they can make the hole smaller. But in my terms, I'm a big fan of it, so kudos to them there. Next, we'll go into rotors. Like I said, they went away from the old Dura-Ace rotor style. Now they went to the XTR mountain bike style rotor, and because of this, they said that these dissipate heat easier. They don't heat up as quickly, which relate in terms to better performance for braking, and also they are lighter a little bit than the stock Dura-Ace rotors as well. So they just went ahead and went away with it. That's why you're seeing a lot of the pros in the Tour de France of that. They're running XTR rotors. Everyone was wondering why. They were wondering if there's a shortage on rotors. No, just because of performance boost and also a better braking stoppage on there. Going to next, they are still keeping rim brake for Dura-Ace and Ultegra, but these group sets are not mechanical group sets. There's no more mechanical wires. Dura-Ace and Ultegra are only DI2 now. It's only electronic, but they are still giving you the rim brake option, which is a good thing to have. I know the Ultegra is going to have a rim brake. I know the Dura-Ace is going to have a rim brake as well. But, you know, that's just for you guys who enjoy it. And I mean, I think that's pretty cool they're still allowing that, but it is what it is. And then the last thing I want to talk about are the shifters of what they look like, the ergonomics. I'm a fan of this. Now, I know a lot of people aren't going to be a fan of this because of the fact that they used to love the way that the Shimano shifters felt, the older ones. They were a smaller hood. Everyone said that the SRAM Red hoods and SRAM Force hoods were bigger. They kind of looked like Predator heads. They were bulky and look good. From the fitters I talked about in the fitting courses I've done retool fitting. I've done guru fitting. I went to specialized for fitting classes. I've done a bunch of different fitting classes. The main thing that they want to try to get is comfortability for hand positioning. And one of the most comfortable hand positions you get is like a pistol grip. Something that's comfortable like that is ergonomic. If you look at all these shifters now, the Dura-Ace and SRAM Red, when you hold your arm straight out, they kind of put your hand in a cocked out position. So ergonomically, you can see that these shifters kind of tilt in. So they go more of a natural pitch to your arm. When you hang out on your arms, your wrist kind of tilting anyways, which is more natural. Whereas with your shifters, it'd be like that. So that puts more strain here. It puts more strain on these nerves, these carpal tunnel nerves, stuff like that. So they're going in that route as well. Also, with the bigger hoods as well, it's a different position to put your hands in. You can grab the top here. But I think it's a benefit to have that ergonomic going too. They also said that they changed the braking dynamics. The shifter, instead of having a smaller window of where the brake is, before with Dura-Ace and Ultegra, when you used to hit the brakes, it would just kind of dead space and then engage. Now they're making a longer engagement window and have more modulation as well. So when you're actuating that brake and you're pressing down, it's not just going to be that hardcore pack like pop. You're actually going to get some modulation where you can control the braking, so you can go into a corner slowly and kind of give it some let off. And then once you hit that apex, you can hit off it. Whereas before, you kind of just press it and the calipers are pressed in, and you will lose, you would just get full braking. So now you can actually have a little bit more modulation of where you want to pull at and kind of just keep one finger on there, which is great. I mean, that's what SRAM Red is kind of doing right now with their modulation, where you actually have a dot fluid in there and SRAM Red's brakes, and they have actuation. And but I know that a lot of people who run Shimano stuff, mountain bikers and road bikers, they like to feel that snappiness. So I have to get my hands on it. I'm excited to feel it. I want to see what's different, but the shifters look cool. I'm excited for it. It's something different. I know people probably won't like the bigger hoods, but that's just what you have to do. And also, you don't have to have an E-tube anymore. With the old Dura-Ace, you used to have a plug-in E-tube, like the Bluetooth, the little dongle you have to connect from port to port, which will make it Bluetooth. Then you can function with the app. This stuff is completely wireless now. It's all Bluetooth ready. You can download the app. You can do all this stuff with it. You don't need that dongle anymore, which would be great. And you can change all the elements of what you want and how you want to shift. Also, they have the new HYPERGLIDE, which they said is completely smooth shifting. Before, the older 11-speed Dura-Ace 9100, when you would shift, you hear that pop, 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 pop. It was a very efficient shift, but you can actually hear it changing gears. Now, with this stuff, with the 12-speed, the HYPERGLIDE, you go ahead and you shift. Apparently, from what GCN is saying and all these other HYPERGLIDE components are saying, is that you actually get a nicer shift, a smoother shift, something that's like the XTR, where you don't notice the difference from going up or down shift. So they say that you can actually sprint, or they're saying that when you're under load or you're riding with it, you're not going to have to worry about hitting a shift under load and worry about jumping off or something like that, which is pretty cool. And then, I know this is a long one, but wheels. I got the wheels here. And the wheels, they retail, I'll tell you right now. So they have 3 pairs of wheels. They have a 50 millimeter depth, a 36 millimeter depth, and a 60 millimeter depth. The 60 millimeter depth are $2,200 for the pair. The 36 millimeter depth are $21, and the 50 are $21. So around $2,000, which ain't bad right now. I mean, that's a really decent price for a premium wheel set. I'm gonna show you what they look like. Very clean, aesthetic looking. This is the 50 millimeter depth wheel. They are in a tubular version. They are tubeless ready. They're a clincher. They have their own Dura hub on here as well. They are a 12-speed 12-speed hub as well. I forgot to mention as well that the 12-speed cassette is compatible with 11-speed hubs. So your 11-speed hubs that are Shimano now will work with your 12-speed if you decide to upgrade. So keep that in mind. But what they're saying is that the 12-speed hub is a better engagement for the 12-speed cassette. It's more points of contact, which will result in a better turn. So keep that in mind. 50s look dope. And this is the width of the 50s, I believe. No, it's width of 60s. 50 millimeter depth, 28 millimeters wide. The 60s are a 60 millimeter depth, 28 millimeters wide. And these are the 36. 36 millimeter depth, 20 millimeters wide. And they have some kind of asymmetric to it as well, where it is kind of offset on one side. And I'll show you what these look like right here. This is the 36, which is more of a climbing wheel. This is the 60, which looks badass. Dura's wheels have always been premium. We've been waiting for a refresh for these things for the longest time, but they look absolutely amazing. And yeah, I mean, shoot, I'm excited to see it hands-on. I want to get my hands on it. I don't know the price for the Ultegra yet, so like I said, but they made big improvements to disc brakes. That's money. 12-speed, which is now completely or semi-wireless, which is great for mechanics. They helped out the bleeding port. You don't need a Bluetooth dongle. It's 12-speed ready. I'm excited to see it. I think they make great strides. I think it is a little bit bland from what it looked like to now. It's just kind of like a refresh, but who knows? Maybe we'll see something like a bigger refresh later on the road. But with that being said, they said that the shifting is smoother. They said the shifting is smoother or faster as well. It's like 40% faster. So we have something to look forward to. So with that being said, I'm done with the video. If you guys enjoy this video, please leave a like. Comment, subscribe. If you guys have any questions, leave it down below. I will get to them as soon as I can. Thank you guys for everything. I enjoy it, and yeah, love you guys. See you guys later.